Welcome to another DMAR Real Estate Mastery session with, it's kind of weird and awkward, but with my wife, Shay Hata. Wait, say hi, Shay.
Hi, everybody.
If you think it's weird talking to your wife like this, it is absolutely weird. We have weird real estate conversations. But Shay, you are a realtor in Chicago, Berkshire Hathaway, Chicago, right?
Correct.
But you're running your business out of Denver.
Yes. So I'm doing it all virtually and then just very occasionally flying back.
Which is that's a whole other session I think we're going to talk about. I think it's an emerging trend that is something you're going to see a lot more of, but that's a whole other session that we'll have. But today, Shay, you're going to talk about blogging. You're talking about content creation. You're going to be part of a lead generation session in March to expand on this, but to get the conversation started about lead generation, lead curation really starts with content generation, blogging, and then how it hooks into your CRM, which has been the like 100-year question in real estate, don't you think?
Yeah, I feel like everyone's always searching for that golden CRM that does everything they want it to do.
Yeah, which doesn't exist, by the way. It takes a lot of work. You can use an Excel freaking spreadsheet and it'll be the same thing. But Shay, we'll let you get in on it, on really kind of high-end content creation, what you're using, what you're plugging it into, and we'll have Q&A. You cool with that?
Yep, absolutely. You ready?
Yeah, I'm making dinner tonight. So yeah, take it away.
All right, here we go. So, I started in real estate about 8 years ago in Chicago. And when we moved there, when Nobu and I moved there, we moved for his job. He was working for the National Association of Realtors at the time. And I had just gotten my real estate license. I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know anything about Chicago. And what I quickly learned was there were not any good resources online for local content about how the real estate transaction worked in the Chicago area. And I can tell you, having moved here to the Denver area in July, I find the same problem here. I can go on to Zillow and find any house that I want, but what I have a really hard time finding is local content that tells me about the different neighborhoods, how the real estate transaction works in the Denver area. Can I cancel the contract after I go under contract without any penalties? What's the inspection time period like? Like, how does the nitty-gritty details work and what's going on in the local real estate market? And I feel like that is what most people are looking for in terms of content. And as a realtor, that's how you can be different from Zillow, Realtor.com, all of those other syndicated sites that are out there. If you focus on content creation and really educating your clients about how the transaction works, what are the pitfalls? What should they know about home maintenance? What should they know about selling their property? And so that's what I really focused on. And that was how I grew my business from a sphere of no one. I didn't know anyone in the Chicago area to 8 years later, I'm doing 56 million in volume a year. And it's because I really take my time to educate my clients. And my website is the hub of that education. So my website is really the hub. And then all the spokes that are going out are the emails that come out from my CRM, newsletters that go to people, and everything drives them back to the website for that content that is always housed there. So I do think it's really important that you have a website, and particularly have a website with a blog section on it. And I'm going to talk about what is on that blog. I think when I say the word blog, people's eyes roll over in the back of their heads. Don't think of it as a blogger. You're sitting home in your basement typing content 8 hours a day. Think of it as a tool to talk to your clients, to answer their frequently asked questions. That's really what my website is about. So I like Placer. It's an NAR member benefit. You get a discount on it because you're part of DMAR and part of NAR. So you can go to NAR member benefits and find Placer and sign up for them. That way, it's a really easy site to use. If you can use Microsoft Word, you can use Placer. You want to pick a website that's mobile responsive so that people can see it on their devices, their cell phones and their tablets and things like that. And then what I think is really important to set up is a couple of different things. One is having a good neighborhood page or community page. I can tell you when we moved here to Denver, not knowing anything about Denver, that's content we were looking for. What makes Wash Park different than Aurora? What makes Cherry Creek a desirable area to live in versus Littleton, right? We didn't know any of this kind of stuff. And so trying to find that content, and obviously you have to be very careful of fair housing and steering, but you can still talk about, what kind of opportunities are available in those communities. Are there parks? Are there playgrounds? Are there, walking trails? Are there biking trails? What are they close to? What's the commute to, downtown Denver like? So, focusing on those different aspects of the community would be one thing that I would suggest. And make sure you have local pictures. That was the hard thing for us to find. What does that community actually look like? So, go around, take pictures, hire a high school kid who's good at photography, go to the local colleges, see if you can find a photography student, have those local pictures on your website. And really get into what are the different types of housing there. If I'm looking for new construction, am I going to be able to find that in this community, or is it more older homes? I know that you have several thousand homes here that have lead feeds coming into them. Talk about those if that's an issue for people. So talk about kind of what are the housing issues in those different communities, what things should they be looking for, all of that kind of stuff on there. And then I really recommend having a blog section. And the blog section is really the heart of my website. That's where I answer any question that I get from a client more than once becomes a blog. So we've been getting a lot of questions of, what is a pre-foreclosure? I have clients reaching out to me all the time right now because of COVID saying, hey, I'm seeing all these pre-foreclosures online. I'd like to set up a showing and go and see one. And I have to explain to them, those typically aren't properties that we can actually see. So if you're getting questions like that, are estimates accurate? Can I cancel a contract after I go under contract? What is highest and best? What should I do in a multiple offer situation? What does it mean to offer to buy a property as is? Those should be all blogs that go on your website. And then you want to make sure that you're actively using them with clients. So one of the things that we do is we are constantly updating our website and hooking it into our CRM. So for instance, when COVID started last March, we created these pages. One's called Buying During COVID, one's called Selling During COVID. And we explained to our clients how we were going to keep them safe during the buying and selling process. We update these pages every month as things are changing so that they know what the current strategy is. Are we allowed to do open houses? Are we not? Are we doing touchless showings? How are we managing all of these things? And so when people go to our website, they can see that we are on top of all of this and that we are updating them constantly and that our website is updated. I hate going to somebody's website and their last blog post was 4 years ago. It makes me think, are they still practicing real estate? Are they still doing this? I have no idea. So you want to make sure that that information is up to date. And then what's been really helpful is when we have a new buyer who reaches out to us, we will respond back and say, hey, we'd love to set up a time to talk with you about your home search. You may be wondering how we can keep you safe during COVID. Here's a link to a blog on our website where we explain that we can do virtual consultations, virtual showings. We're doing touchless showings. You have to wear a mask, all of those kinds of things so they know how we're going to keep them safe. And then the same thing for our sellers. When new sellers reach out to us, we're responding back, setting up a Zoom consultation with them and saying, we're sure you have questions about how we're going to keep you and your family safe with all these people coming in for showings. Here's how we're going to do that. So really, the website and the blog should be something that you're using with your clients on a regular basis. You're sending that content out to them. It's not just a place where people can go and find it. So what we like to do is use RealVolve, which is our CRM. They're Denver based here. And what I like about RealVolve is that you can send out emails that are targeted based on milestone dates in the transaction. And you can do it based on where people are in their buying or selling process. So for instance, we have a prospective buyer workflow. So anybody who we meet at an open house or who comes to us and is maybe not quite ready to buy yet, maybe they're thinking they're going to buy in 6 months or 12 months, we can set them up on a workflow. And then I can start to send them things like, what is a pre-foreclosure? And so we like to send those out to clients before they potentially even know that they have a question about that. So those are great posts to do, like, are estimates accurate? what's going on in the housing market in Denver. Shoot a video every quarter to tell people, is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? What should they expect to encounter in multiple offers? How quickly do they need to get in to see properties, and update them regularly on how the market is changing. So, think about, if you get a question more than once from a client, that's probably a question you should be putting on your website and answering. And then you should figure out, who does that question need to get sent out to? Put it in your CRM, start to create buckets of categories of different clients, and start to manually or automatically feed them that content before they even know they have the question. So, another good thing to put on your website are resources, service providers, things like that, and be pushing those out through your website. So when it comes to blogging, really think about answers for frequently asked questions and put those on your website. Nobu?
Well, dang. There's a lot to unpack here, and I think it's going to help for us to kind of really stop talking about blogging for a second, think about it from kind of the business perspective, because it's been the year of blogging, the year of video, the year of everything in real estate for forever. But because of COVID, it really accelerated content creation and content absorption by people out there right now searching for a home to buy in markets that they might not know anything about, like for us in Denver, but for your folks, it's not just about Chicago, but like the suburbs, right?
Right, absolutely. So I think you can talk about, how does the market differ in the city versus the suburb? How does housing differ in both places? And I'll tell you, I talked to a new buyer today who was referred to me. They're moving from out of town, so especially in a market like Denver, where you have a ton of people coming from other markets where real estate is done very differently. She was interviewing several agents, and she said, I have to tell you, I really liked your website because I was able to go through all of the steps to buy a home and understand how that process works in Chicago, because it's very different from where I'm moving from in Michigan, and that made me feel like you were going to educate me on the process and that you really knew what you were doing. So, it's helpful not just from a blogging perspective for your current clients, but also just lead generation with new clients, because if you have a website that's filled with a lot of content, people will come back to it over and over again to keep reviewing that content.
That's the part about this that people don't talk about, is that if you're gonna go and talk about leads right now, you're either paying for it, right, which is becoming more and more expensive, or you're earning it through this content creation, which takes longer, takes a bigger commitment day to day or week to week, frankly, right? But is well worth it in the long run, because how much are you paying for these leads that are coming out who have stalked your website for years before being able to buy a home? How many people are using your site to actually pick you versus another agent because of it, right? We get referrals. I mean, you know these numbers, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of our clients, I would say 95% of our clients have stalked us on the website and have read through a lot of the content on the website before they call us for the first time, and so they're more educated is the other nice part of the process. You're not having to necessarily start from scratch with these people, because they've read all of this on the website and they share it with other people. That's the thing I find interesting from a lead generation perspective, is we'll be working with, some people in their 30s, say, and they're sharing these blog posts with their parents who are helping them make decisions about which property to buy or which agent to use. And then eventually those parents come back to us and say, we were so impressed by all the blog posts that you were sending our daughter when she bought her home. We'd like to work with you as well. So, they're forwarding to these messages to other people who are decision makers. It helps everybody be on the same page and understand how the process works. And eventually those people often become clients as well.
Yeah, it's a long tail lead generation construct, but man, does it work. And it works for a lot of other folks in many different ways. You use a written word, other people use video, and some folks use everything in between. What have been your top hits, right? You got tips to buy and sell a home, right? And lists everything you need to take to buy and sell a home, which I think is something that we should be doing as realtors in general. We need to be transparent about what it takes to buy and sell to show what works. But what other posts that you've been using that are hits every year for you?
Yep. So, some of the really popular ones that we've been using, if you want to go to my website, you can check them out. It's buyselllovechicago.com. And as Nobu said, we have a buyer section, and underneath that we have the steps to buy. Those are about 31 steps. They're very detailed down to us recommending an inspector, and we'll have a list of 3 inspectors in there. So when our client goes under contract, we can send them that post and say, hey, next step in the process is scheduling the inspection. Here's what happens at the inspection. Here are the 3 recommended inspectors, schedule somebody and let us know. So there's a lot of process ones that explain, what happens during the inspection, what happens during an appraisal, what happens if an appraisal comes in low, or what happens if it comes in high. So there are a lot of those that you can see on the website that we use during the transaction. I think the ones that are really helpful that end up getting used a lot are the ones before we even get a client under contract. So explaining those frequently asked questions up front. So, what is a pre-foreclosure? We're using that one constantly right now because we're getting asked that a lot. What is a highest and best, offer? What do you do in a multiple offer situation? We use one that's called, so you're ready to make an offer. What comes next? And so we send that to clients when they're thinking about making an offer. We ask them to email us back all the answers that are in that blog post. So it asks them things like, what are their legal names? What closing date do they want? How much for earnest money? What's their initial offer price they want to offer? What's their walkaway price? Their contingencies, all of that kind of stuff. Those are really popular ones. What is, does a seller have to clean a house before closing? That's a popular one because, they don't know can they leave it in broom clean condition? Do they have to, bring in a cleaner? So really any questions that you're getting asked a lot, those are ones that you should put online and use with your clients and, get in the habit of sending them to clients when they say to you, hey, what's a short sale? My answer is I've got a great blog post on that. I'm going to send you a link to it so you can read all about it. And that way I don't have to have a 15-minute conversation with them about what a short sale is. You should have one on what's a foreclosure. So you can send them a link to that. So any question you're getting asked more than once, don't spend 15 minutes answering it, write it online and then send them the link to it so they can read it on their own at their leisure.
Also, you've been doing a lot of video lately using these Zooms for things like, buyer seller seminars, recording them on Zoom and putting on your site. What's been the reception on those?
So those have been really helpful. I think especially right now during the pandemic, it's hard for people, especially if they have kids, to log into a class and watch a class on, buying a home or selling a home. So it's really nice for them to have that replay of it. We're getting a lot of traction just having it on YouTube and promoting it through our social media as well. So that's been attracting a lot of buyers, so if I were going to redo this from scratch, I would probably do a lot more video. Mine is very content heavy in terms of written content. I think Bomb video is great for that, to be able to record those and send those out to your sphere. If I were going to do it all over again, I would do Bomb and Playster.
So after the transaction, right, you've got a 10-year plan to touch folks after the fact. Same thing, right? Everything comes from your site through your CRM. What kind of content have you been sharing over the course of 10 years that have been impactful?
Yeah, absolutely. So our goal with the 10-year follow-up program is 2 things. One, I think you told me a stat when I first started that was something like 80% of buyers and sellers would use the agent again who helped them buy that home, but they can't remember that agent's name when they're ready to buy and sell. So to me, that's really a communication problem. We as realtors are not good at staying in contact with our client after the transaction ends. So we have this 10-year follow-up program. And our goal with that program is we're only going to send content to a client that will save them time or save them money or help them with their home in terms of knowing what kind of maintenance and repairs and upgrades to do. So that is our framework. We won't send them recipes. We won't send them things that are easy for them to Google. So we send them quarterly maintenance reminders of things they need to be doing to prep their home. We send them some seasonal things like here. I think it would be really helpful to send people information about how do they de-winterize their sprinkler system. Yep. Because if we didn't know how to do that, if they're moving from a place where they don't have sprinklers, like us moving from Illinois, we had no idea what to do and how to do that or who to call, right? Reminders to, appeal their property taxes, file their homeowner's exemption. If there are any programs they need to know about through the city or state that might help them with solar panels or, making their home more energy efficient, we find those are the kinds of things that people are looking for. And so that's helpful content to send out to them.
So a lot of people say like, oh, I'm not the expert on that. I should be talking about that. And you were like, no problem. I'm going to get my lawyers and my title people and all those folks to talk about it. So you bring these people into the fold to do content creation for you, right?
We do as well. Yeah. So we'll talk with our inspector and have him do, an article on, 5 things you can do in your home to prevent, problems that'll come up on inspections. We'll talk to our lenders every quarter about what's going on with interest rates. Where do they see loans going, things like that. We'll talk with our financial planner on, what's going on with the stock market, et cetera. We'll talk with insurance providers. So, every quarter we're interviewing those people and putting them on our social media and sending them out to our sphere. So if it's a subject that we are not a content expert on, go find one. Usually they're happy to talk to your audience.
Content creation is one of the toughest things ever. I think we'll end it on what I think is the biggest question out there, right? How do you find time to do this?
Yeah. So it's a lot of work in the beginning, but it saves me hundreds of hours every year because, I think realtors, we tend to get the same questions over and over again. And you're answering that same question thinking, gosh, I just answered this for a client the other day. And that's really a waste of your time. So it does take some time up front to set up all of this content online. But if you can then say to a client, oh, let me send you this link to answer your question, you're not having to have a 15-minute conversation with them. And so it takes a lot of time up front, but it saves you hundreds of hours every year on the back end. And it's a good lead generation tool. So, I think, especially if you're in a market where you have any downtime, like the week between Christmas and New Year's, that's typically when I do my content creation because I know not as many clients are going to want to be out seeing properties then. So that's when I can sit down, do a lot of content creation for the year and just get it done. And the other thing to think about is you only have to do this once. You only have to make that blog post once. You never have to do it again. And then it's done and you can use it for years after that. I know I get asked the question a lot, well, should I hire somebody to write the content for me? And I am very much against that for 2 reasons. One, you want to make sure that they're telling the clients the right information and the right content. And 2, it needs to sound like you. When you go to my website, it sounds like you're having a conversation over coffee with me when you're reading through these blog posts. And so that comes across as very authentic to people because they can feel like they get to know you online. So yeah, it's hard to make the time, but do 1 blog post a week, 1 frequently asked question, and just answer that and start to use it.
Folks, proof is in the pudding, and look at the stats. Shay's heard these stats before and acted upon them early, which I think is the biggest thing, right? So 2 in 3 consumers research you before reaching out to you. That is a fact coming from Google. It takes up to 7 weeks for people to be serious and reach out to a realtor. And that's when they do the most of the research. So people are serious about buying and selling for a month and a half before they reach out to an agent. What they're doing online is dreaming. The biggest stat that has grown over the last couple of years, and I think more so since COVID started, is that now 86% of consumers now factor in one-stop shopping, this whole idea about I hire you and the rest of your team, mortgage, title, lawyers, and all that stuff. 86% of these people factor that into the decision-making when they're picking a realtor, right? That's what you market. That's who you market with. Buying leads is great, but it is no means a scalable and future-proof way to do business. Doing it yourself, learning good habits, and using good platforms is the way to do it. Folks, proof is in the pudding here. Sell $60 million a year, 75 homes on your own, another 50 to 60 with your team.
Yep, exactly. So,
and how much are you spending again on lead generation?
Well, nothing. I mean, I spend, $99 a month on my website, and we do a lot of client gifts and events, but I don't buy leads. I've never bought leads. I don't door knock, call, for sale by owners. I don't call expireds. I don't cold call. It is all for me. My whole business has been grown on content and educating clients and giving them a fantastic customer service experience. And my feeling is if you do that, you will get a lot of referral business and you do not need to spend money on lead generation.
Awesome. Hata, thank you so much for joining us on this thing.
See you tonight.
It's been another DMAR Mastery, Real Estate Mastery session. Thanks for joining us. See you on the next one.